Hey, good morning everybody. It's Clint with CCUA. We're back with another Veg Out video. Today we're going to talk a little bit about container tomatoes. So, we're all familiar with tomatoes, at least the fruit. But if you're not familiar with it, this is a young tomato plant. Now this is not the happiest tomato plant that ever existed. You can see we've got some crunchy yellow leaves over here. Our leaves are a little bit yellow. We've got a lot of roots going on down here. Just overall not the healthiest looking tomato plant. And that's because it spent too long in too small of a container. And that happens a lot. Sometimes, life gets in the way and we're not able to get our plants in the ground quite as soon as we would like to. Or maybe we're not even putting them in the ground. Maybe we just want to grow a container tomato. So what we're going to do today is show you how to take this sad tomato and make it happy again. So all we're going to need to do that is a larger container. So here you can see I've got just a nice black plastic plant container. And what we're going to do is just kind of dig a hole and put our tomato in there. So this can be really helpful, especially if you have a really small backyard or no backyard at all. You can actually just grow a whole tomato plant in one container. Now you'll want if you do that, you're going to want your container to be just a little bit bigger than this. This is just what I had on hand, and if you have a sad tomato and this is all you have on hand, then that's okay. But for the long term, you're going to want at least a 3 to a 5 gallon bucket for your tomato's final home. So what we're going to do is plant this, but we're not going to plant it like we might plant other things, where we just cover up the soil block and call it good. So with tomatoes, they are able to put out roots from any part of their stem. That means any part of the stem that has soil contact, roots are going to grow out of it. So what we're going to do is clip off all of the leaves that we don't want. So all these ones growing down here towards the base, those are just going to be buried anyway, so we're just going to pinch those off to help save the energy from the plant to put more into the roots. And we may pull this one off too. Let's give it a chance in the pot and see how it goes. So we're probably going to plant this all the way to the bottom, which means that we need to take our soil, a little bit of room. We're just going to set that tomato plant right in there. Just because it's so tall, we don't really need to lift it up at all. And then you're just going to start filling in the soil around it. Just want to make sure you keep your tomato nice and level. You don't want to lean in towards one side too much. Not the biggest deal if that happens, but I think it looks a little prettier when it's standing straight up. And there you can see, just about at the top. I think I am going to leave these sad leaves here on the side on there, just in case they make a recovery. We're going to push it down just a little bit, to make sure we're getting good soil root contact. Just a little bit more to top it off. And there we have a nice, beautiful, potted up tomato. Now, we're going to water it, but before we do that, there is a couple things that we might do. If you had some plant fertilizer, now would be the time to sprinkle some of that on top so it gets watered in. This watering can right here is what we use to mix our fish emulsion in. If you're not familiar, it is is a really super smelly, gross fish product. And while it may smell really bad and be kind of gross to us, it is super good for our plants because it is filled with nitrogen that they need to grow. So this has got some of that in there, so it's going to get its nitrogen just like that. We're just going to go ahead and give it a nice slow water. Yeah, see, that's why I said slow, because I guess if you get it too fast, it'll just pour over the edge. And you might notice that your soil settles down as you water it. And that's okay, it shouldn't settle down that much, but if it does happen to settle down a lot, just add a little bit more in there to top off the pot. It's really important that you give it a really nice deep drink. Tomatoes love water. They don't like to be thirsty. And that's especially true of any plant when you first pot it. You should water it in until you start seeing water run out of the bottom of the pot. That means that it is fully saturated. So we're going to go ahead and set this just over here on the mulch, so we don't make too big of a mess on our table.
There's a question for you.
Yeah.
Tiffany asked, does the fish emulsion smell for long after you use it? Wondering if my yard will stink.
I've never noticed it too much after the fact, but I've only ever used that on our farm, and it's really open air here, and it's really big as well. So I've never noticed it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't smell bad in a smaller backyard. If it is something you're worried about, you could also put some mulch on top of it, some straw, and that should help out too. And if you don't have fish emulsion, any sort of nitrogen heavy soil amendment or fertilizer will help you out. Blood meal, feather meal are things that we use here. I like blood meal especially because it is, you only have to use a really small amount of it, and it's super water soluble, so it sinks into the soil and gets picked up by that plant really, really quickly. But there's a lot of different options out there for all of your nitrogen needs. I do want to show just a quick example of what we might use, what a nice bigger pot might be. So this would be a better final size for what you want to plant. And you can see it's a little bit bigger than what we've got here. And if I were at home doing this, I would use a pot closer to this size, but I didn't want to use up a bunch of soil for that, because I don't know where this is going to end up at. So I just went ahead and used the smaller one. But with tomatoes, you're going to want at least a 1 foot around pot, and at least that deep as well. Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. I think that is about all we had planned for you. So we hope you all have a bountiful summer full of tomatoes. If you go ahead and make some container tomatoes in your backyard or your balcony or wherever, we would love to see those. Send us a message or post a comment on our video, and we'll get to see that. But aside from that, we will see you all tomorrow for another VEG Out video. Thanks for tuning in.